Members at home, can you hear us? Thank you, members. Madam Presiding Member, I think we can restart now. Thanks.
Do you want me to restart from the beginning, Chris? No? Okay, we go to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Delyth Harris, Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer. Have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. With regard to agenda item number 11, which is the Public Service Board Wellbeing Plan, there are a few interests in relation to that report. Firstly, the leader is a member of the Public Service Board and has a personal interest to declare. If I can ask the leader to confirm that interest, please.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Rose Seaborn and Councillor David Williams are members of the Gwent Regional PSB Scrutiny Committee and have a personal interest. Could I ask both members to confirm that interest, please?
Confirmed.
Confirmed.
And Councillor Stephen Evans wishes to declare the fact that he is a representative of the Fire Service in relation to the PSB Scrutiny Committee. If I could ask Councillor Evans to confirm that interest.
Yeah, I confirm that, yeah.
Thank you. With regard to agenda item number 12, which is the Community Review Terms of Reference, there are a number of members who are members of community councils, so I will ask each member to confirm their interest after their name is called. The members of Pontypool Community Council are Councillor Linda Clarkson.
Yes, confirmed.
Councillor Nick Byrne.
Yes, confirmed.
Councillor John Hawler.
Confirmed.
Councillor Gaynor James.
Confirmed.
Councillor John James.
Confirmed.
Councillor Sue Molson.
Confirmed.
Councillor Rosemary Matthews. Councillor Rosemary Matthews, is she? Is she not here? Okay. Councillor Caroline Price. Councillor Nicholas Simons.
Confirmed.
And the members of Cumbraen Community Council are Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Confirmed.
Councillor Peter Jones.
Confirmed.
Councillor Sue Morgan. Confirmed. And members of Hentley's Community Council are Councillor Ron Burnett.
Confirmed.
And Councillor Colette Thomas. Members of Croeso-Keylog and Llanrafon Community Council, Councillor David Williams.
Confirmed.
And Blaenavon Town Council, Councillor Liam Coles.
Confirmed.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I'm not aware of any other interest, but members will be aware that if you enter into a debate or ask a question about a specific matter, then you can consider declaring an interest at that time, and this would apply to the, for example, the schools report on the Torfaen Education Service post-inspection update, is that if you ask a question about a specific school or enter into a debate about that school, then you can consider declaring an interest at that time. Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Agenda item 4 takes you to the confirmation of the Council minutes, starting on page 5. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. I'll take those as approved. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, update on actions. Members, the updates on actions. What has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 47 in the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments? No? Can I ask members to agree to note those update on actions then, please? Thank you, they noted. Agenda item 6, receipt of petitions. We have 2 petitions today. The first petition is in relation to the voting system in Torfaen. Mr. Brendan Roberts, could you possibly speak to the petition, please? Welcome this morning, Brendan. Let's take a seat.
Good morning, everyone. So I'll just get started. So we, the undersigned, petition Torfaen County Borough Council to vote on changing the voting system in Torfaen for local elections. The Welsh Government last year passed legislation that gives all Welsh local authorities the option to change their voting system for local elections. this being from the current first-past-the-post system to the more proportional single transferable vote system. All of the mainstream political parties relevant to Wales, except the Conservative Party, support proportional representation, they being Plaid Cymru, the Liberal Democrats, the Green Party, Reform UK. Also, as of recently, the Labour Party have voted in support of using proportional representation. The single transferable vote system is already used to elect representatives to the Northern Ireland Assembly and, respectively, all Scottish local authorities. Not to mention, the Senedd Welsh Parliament is also discussing the use of closed list proportional representation for the next election in 2026. By changing our voting system, I hope that we would be able to potentially create a more cooperative politics, and the residents of Torfaen will actually see a council chamber that truly reflects the way they voted. A party that doesn't get more than 50% of the vote should not get more than 50% of the seats in any elected chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Members, do you agree for the petition to be sent to the relevant executive member for them to consider, respond and report back? All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you very much, Brendan. The second petition is in relation to the consultation on waste collection changes. Councillor Ron Burnett, could you possibly speak to the petition, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've been asked to present this petition on behalf of Torfaen resident Ian David Saunders, and the petition reads: after yet another council tax rise, Torfaen Council want to change our bin collections from 2 weeks to every 3 to 4 weeks. If this was to go ahead, the streets would be covered in rubbish within weeks. I can't see how this will make an impact on their goals on recycling when there's plenty of other options out there, like expanding what they recycle for us now. I believe the council is forgetting that they work for us. They do not rule us. Looking at Torfaen's page, it's my understanding that Torfaen residents are fed up with their voices not being heard. The aim of this petition is to have our voices heard. We are not happy with the two options. The petition is to stop the change from happening. Excuse me. And we have sat back far too long doing whatever they want with our money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Members, do you agree for the petition to be sent to the relevant executive member for them to consider, respond and report back? All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much for that, Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair.
Agenda item 7, which is public question time. There are no public questions, so we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the announcements from the leader or the chief executive. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
Yes, please, Madam Presiding Member. Two things I'd like to announce. First of all is to give my congratulations to the players, coaches, staff and volunteers at Pontypool Rugby Football Club on their cup win this weekend down in Cardiff. It's great to see a good turnout from Paula fans in Cardiff, and to see that the team again making us proud. So congratulations to all at Pontypool, and I wish them well for the remainder of their season. Second announcement I wanted to make is I wanted to update Council on the refuse and recycling consultation and tell you, councillors, first about our plans, as so many of you have engaged constructively with Mandy and myself over the past few weeks. You'll all know we've been consulting on refuse and recycling collections in order to consider the urgent challenge of raising our recycling rate to meet the 70% target. From that consultation, it's clear that the vast majority of people understand the importance of recycling and reducing waste. But now is the time to take stock of the questions that the members of the public have asked before any decisions are made. Torfaen residents have already made great strides over the past 20 years, and that shouldn't be forgotten. Thanks to our residents and collection teams, we've moved from a recycling rate of 10% to over 62%. That's thousands of tonnes of rubbish saved from being dumped every year. But we need to go further and faster together now. I'd like to say thank you to all the residents who have taken the time to engage in the recycling discussion over the past few weeks. What we've heard out on our roadshow, and as councillors in our wards, is that some people are genuinely concerned about the impact of moving to 3 or 4 weekly rubbish collections. We've heard that many residents are unaware of all the items that could be recycled weekly and want to know more about how they can play their part. and we've heard that others are highly motivated by the challenge to reduce waste and the positive impact this will have on the environment and want us to do more to help them. What nobody can deny is the need to increase recycling is urgent. As leader of this council, I want to reassure people who fear they may struggle, like larger families or people with hygiene products. So I've listened to your concerns and have decided to draw to a close the consultation on 3 or 4 weekly collections. Instead, we'll use our remaining roadshow events to gather more of the public's valuable insight. I've asked the waste team instead to start a Raise the Rate campaign to show what we can do together before any further changes. Now, whilst my job is to listen, leadership isn't always telling you what you want to hear or only listening to those with the loudest voices. That's not honest leadership. Our objective must remain to achieve a 70% recycling rate. And let's be honest, the evidence is that far too much recyclable material, such as food, still gets put out in the purple lidded bins each week, and somehow that has to be resolved. That's the basic challenge, keeping recyclable materials out of the purple lidded bins to reduce residual waste. There's no easy way around that, no alternative quick fix that avoids the need to confront that reality. If we fail to move our recycling rates towards 70%, we will face significant fines that will have a financial impact on all council services, £100,000 for every 1% we fall short of 70%. If we cannot raise the rate and face fines, we will be left with little choice but to consider a system change, such as changing collection frequency or reducing the size of bins. So planning work will need to continue in case behaviour change does not achieve the desired results. But instead, to reach 70%, we need to do more together. I believe we're all capable of doing more and collectively playing our part in keeping as much out of the purple lidded bins as we can. For everyone who's uncertain on what can be recycled, I will ensure that we share more information so that as a whole community we drive up recycling rates together. But we know that we can do more to help as a service too. So we're working to increase collection points for stretchy plastic and help with collections of adult hygienic products. We're going to do more to remind everyone about which items should go where. We're going to provide more recycling boxes in different places across the borough, and we've made an investment in staff and new vehicles, and we'll invest in our recycling centre at Teacoke to ensure that every ounce of recycling is maximised. At the curbside, we've started collecting batteries in the black boxes. We're working to help the majority of flats recycle as much as possible, working closely with our registered social landlords. And in August, we're introducing weekly cardboard collections, as we know card can be bulky to store. Lastly, we will also start collecting small electrical items in August too. So this is the culture change that has to start today, rather than relying on systemic change in 2024. We'll ensure we report back regularly to you on progress and on our own performance so that you can see how the plan is having an impact. In the coming weeks, we'll also launch a more detailed recycling survey to continue to capture more of your feedback on what will help raise the rate. As councillors and leaders in our communities, we all need to play a part in raising the rate and making the campaign work. So I'm looking for everyone's input on this. We'll set up a small cross-party working group to review how the campaign is going to give our communities the best possible chance of succeeding. I know change isn't easy, but to reach 70%, change is necessary, so we need to change together, each doing our bit to raise the rate.
Thank you, Leader. Chief Executive, do you have any announcements?
Nothing to add, thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Thank you, Chief Exec. Takes us to agenda item 9, which is the Torfaen Education Services post-inspection update on page 49 of your agenda. Jason O'Brien, Strategic Director, Children and Families. Could you deliver this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. The purpose of this report today is to provide Council with an overview and an update on the work and the progress made within the Education Service to address the recommendations made in March 2022 as a result of the ESTA inspection visits to the Council, which is highlighted in Appendix 1. Before I go any further, I'm joined today by Andrew Powell, who is the Director of Education, and Andy Rothwell, the Head of Learning and Achievement. I don't propose to go through the report verbatim, but will provide a brief summary of the key areas and development and highlight some of the impact so far. To start with, I would say that the Education Service continues to be on a journey of improvement, and whilst there have been significant changes, and I would suggest significant progress made against the key recommendations of the inspection, we know that more needs to be done, and there's a continued drive on improvement and development in order to ensure that our learners and young people have the most productive experiences of education within Torfaen. I would offer that the plans and the work being done as a result of the inspection are focused on a continued development which spans way past the potential for the Council to move away from being of significant concern and to a Council that offers the highest standards of education, which should be evidenced in the future by the positive experiences and achievements of our learners. In terms of the report, and in no particular order, the key areas of development within the educational service since the Eston inspection relate to a significant strengthening of governance, with, for example, the development of a monthly accelerated improvement board, which was previously chaired by the Chief Exec and is now chaired by myself, a termly strategic improvement board, which includes a range of external consultants providing an extra layer of scrutiny to the developments within the education service. And of course, this is in addition to the other governance procedures that take place in terms of our local scrutiny arrangements. There's a greater focus on performance, with all schools participating in school development plans and team around the schools meetings taking place at least termly with secondary schools. There's also an increased emphasis on performance within the Council, with the development, for example, of a balanced scorecard and a cycle of reporting performance into the leadership team. There's a much improved relationship, I would suggest, between the Council and respective schools. This is a relationship that has necessitated greater visibility, increasing levels of support, but in tandem with that, of course, increasing levels of accountability and, where required, expectations of improvement. There's clear engagement with all schools and with school governors. This is including individual visits to schools at all levels, at the Chief Executive level, cross-directorate meetings with all head teachers, the re-establishment of the Association of School Governors meetings, and continued dialogue between the Council and respective schools. Dialogue which has been both supportive and challenging, with a developing understanding of accountability and expectation. There's been greater collaborative working between the Council and the EAS, which has strengthened and developed a clearer focus on the quality of teaching and learning. There have been changes internally to practice and developments of key policies. For example, we've developed and implemented a modified days protocol to ensure that the Council is aware of and involved in planning for any child on a reduced timetable, and we facilitated a process for the use of fixed-term penalty notice for continued unauthorised absences. We've also carried out deep dives with individual schools, focusing on attendance and absence. The internal leadership structure within education has been reviewed. This has resulted in a renewed structure within the education service in order to enhance leadership and levels of responsibility and accountability, which was a key area highlighted as of concern within the Esting findings. There's been a greater corporate response to improving education, and in December 2022, the Council approved the adoption of the new county plan. Rather than that plan being a compilation of priorities of individual directorates, the plan presents a clear vision for the borough against 4 cross-cutting themes. Those themes translate into 9 equally cross-cutting wellbeing objectives. The first of those wellbeing objectives is we will raise educational attainment, helping young people and adults to gain qualification and skills needed to lead positive lives. And the second is we will encourage and champion children and families so they can thrive. Members will be aware of the significant changes to leadership within the Council in recent months, with 4 directorates becoming 3 and 4 chief officers becoming 3 strategic directors. This strategic approach evidences a greater corporate and cross-directorate ownership to the improvements required within education. Since March 2022, there have been a number of visits to schools within Torfaen. In total, 7 schools have been visited. 5 have indicated there's no further follow-up required, and 2 we are awaiting the formalised reports, although there are no concerns that have been evidenced within those 2. Significantly, of course, Ysgol Cymru Gwynllew was removed from special measures in March 2023, and Eston remained part of termly visits with Cwmbran High School in order to monitor its progress in order to continue moving out to special measures. Not highlighted within the report is the continued work being done with schools to review their maintenance programme for which the requirements unsurprisingly vary significantly from school to school. To sum up, members, there's evidence of significant change within the education service within the local authority, and the report and the supporting appendices highlight some of the progress that has been made in recent months. Of course, we recognise there's still considerable work in order to embed and continue to improve practice so that our learners can be provided with exceptional opportunities in line with the wellbeing objectives of the county plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Can I call in Councillor Richard Clark, please?
Can I thank Jason for that overview and reciting of the report. I do believe it's timely. It's a year since the inspection, unlike the typo in 4.3 that says it was March of this year. I wish it was March of this year, perhaps in what we've achieved in the year, perhaps so, but there we are. It has been a year and it is appropriate. Members have been updated in scrutiny and members' questions. So it's right and proper we do a snapshot even of where we currently are. And this report has clearly set out how we are addressing the concerns raised by Esther. I think one benefit for me is I've attended all of our secondary schools and the majority of the primary schools, and by the close of play this academic year I've attended all of our schools, and it's the feedback you get from the head teachers. I can sit in meetings and briefings and be told this, that and the others, but when you've got actually head teachers saying, since October we have noticed X, Y and Z, it begins to feel real. These words in front of you are more than words when I get the head teachers and staff actually saying that to me in person. I think we have, and rightly so, taken it seriously, with our Chief Executive stepping in the first instance to take over the responsibility for education. I think we set the marker down that said we are going to change. With the team in place, now Jason as Strategic Director, Andrew as Director of Education and the Heads of Service, John, Andy and Gareth, I think we are going in the right direction, and the ethos has certainly changed, and the whole team approach, not just of Education Service. The crucial thing of this was we came together as a council and we've made this a keen priority. Scrutiny under Rose has repurposed itself, and with the other governance mentioned by Jason, the progress to date has been rightly challenged and evaluated. There are plenty of challenges ahead, and progress to date within this report shows the direction that we're going. Having created the building blocks illustrated in the report, we are now ready to drill down into each of the 4 recommendations to demonstrate the work done this far and how we are going to get out of special measures. But it's not just about getting out of special measures. This is a sea change in our education service that we don't go into those measures ever again in the future. And some of the mechanisms, the AIG, whether it's called the AIG in the future or whatever it's called, will be in place for that whole system approach for education. Jason mentioned the buildings there and what actually goes on in those buildings to ensure that we maintain the standard that we're heading for. And, you know, why not aim for the skies and be an exemplar authority? That's what we should be aiming for. And I think the building blocks are here and in this report. And I'll happily take any comments from members, and myself and the team will address those. Thank you.
Members, are there any questions? Lucy, Councillor Lucy.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. First of all, I'd really like to say thank you for this report and all the incredibly hard work that's gone behind it. I think it's really encouraging to see in what a good direction we're moving. I'd like to hear a little bit more detail, if that's okay, around the governance and leadership aspect, particularly with relationship to the fact that the directorates have changed and become leaner, which I think is a really good move. What I'd like to understand from the point of view of education is, obviously this is very new, this move, and we've yet to see how that plays out. But I suppose two questions. When would we expect to see how this is positively impacting on education, the fact that we're moving into this Directorate for Children and Education, and if there are any challenges or problems in relation to that, how are they going to be picked up, and how can we ensure that they'll be sort of dealt with in a timely manner? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do you want to take a couple, Jason, or do you want to answer that? Councillor David Williams has got his hand up. That's one. Do you want to take two, or do you want to answer this one now?
If I answer that, I'll attempt to answer that in the first instance then. So in terms of the first part of the question, I guess when would we expect to see the impact of the changes? I guess it's almost how long's a piece of string, really, I think, because I think there are going to be a number of different impacts. I think we've already seen a great impact by the merging of the directorates and the, I guess, the reduction from the 4 to 3 directorates, which I always alluded to in the report, which has seen that greater corporate response. I've mentioned, you know, the 3 strategic directors, myself included with that 3, obviously have met with all the head teachers to go through the work programmes of the directorates and how we can impact upon one another. So I think the impact has already started. I mean, it's how we measure that impact. There are going to be a number of ways to measure that impact, obviously against the county plan and delivery programmes and achievements within the county plan, obviously through our Estin visits and our Estin inspections, and through that level of scrutiny as well that I mentioned that's provided through the different governance arrangements. So I think the broad answer is that impact should be continual. And again, I guess, again, what I've alluded to within my introduction there is, and as Councillor Clark has said, once we come out of a measure with the Estin, that impact and that delivery should continue and continue and continue, and we always want that impact to be developing.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. This is more observation than question, I think. The first thing is I'm reassured by our colleague Councillor Clark's comments about the continuation of the Strategic Improvement Group and actually the aspiration to be best in class and not simply to overcome our present difficulties. I think we need to be mindful of the fact that perhaps I don't like to use the word lightly, but we were perhaps slightly surprised at the Estin inspection last time and our need to respond. Let's hope we're not going to be in that position again. And the second observation, which was pleasing, was at 5-4 to see that there's a desire and a willingness to engage with colleague Gwent so that we look at the education for all our children and all the providers and suppliers, because we do need to see that, as you have alluded to, this is actually all of our business and it's a partnership arrangement that needs to include all that are involved in education. Thank you.
Councillor Colette Thomas.
Sorry about that. I'd just like to say a big thank you, actually, to the department. The reports we're having to scrutiny over the last few months have been really, really good. It's given us the opportunity to really delve into the information that we need. A big thank you there. I'd also like to say special thanks to the Chief Executive and to Richard, Cabinet Member, for taking time out of their very busy diaries to visit the schools. I think it is very important that we keep that relationship going. And I look forward to the day as well when we reintroduce the visits of the Scrutiny Committee to the schools, because we found that very valuable and I think it's something that we should bring back. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take prerogative here, and I'd just like to have an update on our exclusions and attendance. Obviously, this was a worrying issue for the Scrutiny Committee and for the officers. And I just wondered whether there was any improvement on our attendance figures. I want to highlight it at Council because it's so important that our youngsters are in school, because if they're not in school, they don't learn. So, Andy Rothwell, do you want to take that, or Jason?
Morning, members. I'm Andrew Powles, I'm Director of Education. This is my colleague Andy Rothwell, who's Head of Learning and Achievement. And Andy holds the attendance portfolio, so I'll just hand over to update on the latest.
Bart Darbow, lovely to see you all this morning. In terms of attendance, so we're still not where we want to be. We're not back to pre-pandemic levels. That's no different to any other local authority or the national picture. We're taking quite strong steps to improve that. What we have seen, though, more recently, certainly over the last 3 or 4 months, has been significant improvements in schools. So whilst we're not back to where we want to be, we are seeing some general improvements in attendance in schools, which is really pleasing. And I think it reflects a number of elements, really. So we've introduced a new attendance strategy. You'll be aware of, hopefully aware of the very visible Not In, Miss Out campaign that's around schools. And that's really trying to promote the positive experiences of schools and trying to encourage children back into schools for those reasons. We supported schools with some new documentation and operational guidance. From September, we're all aware that the Welsh Government are going to be introducing some new guidance and materials for us to use with schools there as well. So we're looking forward to taking a lead on that from Welsh Government.
Regarding exclusions are still too high. This is a national trend. Many learners are struggling to come back to school post-pandemic. It's an issue linked with attendance. We've got emotional-based school avoidance. So currently we're reviewing structures within departments, portfolios around pupil support and behaviour support. This is, like I say, it's a national issue, and it's actually a piece of work we're looking within the region about how we can develop joint pieces of work. We're closely monitoring every single exclusion that takes place, and there's a challenge to schools where we think it's inappropriate. Alongside that, there's a recognition that some exclusions are appropriate and that we have to work with the families to make sure that these children are cared for and they've got the right provision in place. And that's one of the real strengths of moving to a joint directorate with children's services. There's a much greater communication on the individual needs of children and families. And there's a number of examples where Jason and I have worked together, particular children got very complex backgrounds, to make sure that we work through, make sure they've got the right provision and that schools are supported to look after them as well.
Thank you both. Can I just commend the Education Department, because as Chair of Scrutiny I'm getting a lot more information than coming through to us than we did have, so we're working really well. We've done some excellent questioning and scrutiny. Andrew comes in most times and says, I hope you haven't got 30 questions for us today. But we usually do, so, and I'd like to express my thanks to the Scrutiny Committee members as well for the work that they actually put in. Jason O'Connell, you need to speak. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The report rightfully focuses on pupil attainment outcomes. What work are you doing to improve the lives of the teaching staff? I can personally attest to the fact they're at breaking point across the borough with the volume of work. Anything on that?
That's something we're particularly mindful of. This is an aspect of union activity at the moment, and action short of strike. We're really careful not to ask heads or any members of staff to produce anything that's outside of their normal working practices. That's something that we've adopted as a region for a while, and that when we're completing, for example, team around the school meetings or the multi-agency meetings, we're asking just the schools to talk through regular processes that they operate, share regular self-evaluations or reports that they would normally produce. Mindful not to be asking anything above, because I really appreciate the pressure within schools at the moment. There's pressure linked to the introduction of additional learning needs reform curriculum for Wales. There's a significant change of practice within schools. And what we really want to do is work alongside schools to make sure that we're supporting them and not creating unnecessary workload. So, for example, today we've got all head teachers are in committee room 2 and 3 at the moment, looking at additional learning needs reform. They identified that they wanted further support around the reform and how we can work closely with them. So that's a bespoke session we put on for them today. Similarly, later this week, we've got a meeting with the head teachers about how we can work with them to have bespoke school improvement support. We've identified additional funding that we can invest in schools, but rather than us doing that on our own, we want to do it with schools to make sure the support is what they need and what they will value. So it's part of the wider agenda, but we're particularly mindful in the way that we work with schools not to request anything above and beyond their core practice.
I'll just come back in a minute, Chair. I appreciate you not asking them to. I think the good ones will, and they do regularly. I just want to stress from personal experience that it's a real issue. Teachers are under real pressure at the moment. And the good ones, they will take everybody else's work and do it themselves anyway, because they know that that work has to be done. So I do feel that it needs some concerted effort to improve the health and well-being of our teachers across the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Connell. Councillor Anthony Hunt.
I'd just like to add my voice to those thanking both scrutiny members, Richard as exec member, and also the team of officers for the way that this has been approached. I think it's a good example of how we can sort of work together to develop a plan to improve a service, and I think that's to their great credit. Certainly, I've been really impressed with the way that Andrew, Andy, John, and the team have reported back to us in a very calm, authoritative and evidence-based manner, and I think that sets us in a good stead to make the improvements that we need to make.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Thank you. I think it's an excellent report. It's not an area I specialise in other than being a school governor, which is enough in its own right. But I got an additional question here, which it just struck me when Andrew was talking. What support do the department give, bearing in mind you're now with social services as well, with carer parents regard to additional learning needs? You did mention it, and obviously you've got the heads in, but schools obviously support parents, carers, regard to additional learning needs. I wonder what extra you were being able to do now you're integrated, alongside social services. It's a question, obviously I got experience personally having been a parent, but it's something we appear to be doing a bit better. I just wondered what education was doing in this direction.
Jason?
Thank you, Councillor. I think in terms of the linkages between children's social services and education, obviously that the directorate being newly formed, that's relatively new. I mean, we do have, I think, within Torfaen, a very good, supportive young carers scheme. You know, as an authority, we're one of the few authorities that operate that in-house. So we do have a very good scheme. Going forward, that's part of the work for us to be doing with across directorate, is to look at how we join the dots up between the identification of carers within schools, for example, and carers we're working with within the social services remit, so that we're able to provide that high level of support. I don't know if there's anything that Andrew or Andy wish to add there.
So as part of the additional learning needs reform, we're really promoting a practice called person-centred practice. So inclusion officers are working closely with children, with their families and with schools to identify what children's priorities are and what provision they specifically need. So historically it's been a bit of a chunked up process, but we're trying to engage in more open dialogues where all the stakeholders, and particularly the parents, the carers and the children, are in the room, and they have a voice in determining what their needs are, what their priorities are, and how we can cater to them. So in terms of how education do that, it's partly about working with the LNCOs and the teachers within schools to skill them up to run those processes. Or where they're more complex cases, it's about us running those conferences ourselves. This is a key part of ALN transformation, and it's written into the strategy, which is a current draft at the moment, which we'll be formally launching in the autumn.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor David Daniels.
Thanks, Chair. Both exclusions and lack of attendance have in common that they've been impacted negatively by the pandemic. You know, I think they're indications of something perhaps a bit more kind of worrying behind the scenes. I would have liked to see a bit more reference towards increased pastoral care for those pupils. So it'd be good to have a bit of to elaborate on what more we're doing for pupil well-being, because I think that is part of the solution for both issues.
I agree. Pupil wellbeing, particularly, is written into the post-inspection action plan. This term we're starting to look at the strategy, particularly around learner wellbeing, and that's managed under Gareth's portfolio in terms of ALN, inclusion and wellbeing. So that job description's been revised. What was previously head of pupil support, we've written in large. There's a wellbeing portfolio. It's in its early days. I fully accept that, but it is. But I also fully agree it's a real priority that we need to address.
Yeah, it'd be good to revisit that in the way of perhaps a seminar, looking at those key issues in education in greater detail, just to better understand, those issues in themselves. Because there's a tendency to say, look, this is an impact of the pandemic, and to leave it at that. And I don't think that's, I'm not saying that that's what you've done, but for a lot of things, that's, we just leave it there. And I think it's important to get behind what that actually means, because I think that therein lies the key to undoing or trying to remedy some of the damage done from it. So,
thank you, Councillor Daniels. Councillor Richard Clark.
Just to sum up on a couple of the questions that have been raised. When we note the changes, I did refer to my conversations with head teachers and the fact that they've noted the changes since October. They are a good litmus test for us, so they're already in place. Plenty more changes to come and be noted. The director mentioned the head teachers this morning on ALN. I think we've been too focused in the past on just the transition and not the here and now. And although we have Lenkos in schools, the head teachers have rightly come to us and said, well, actually, we want to know what's going on, and the response is happening as we speak at the moment. Surprise last March? Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yes, at the time, and then realised naivety that with two schools in special measures, we weren't going to do well. So I think we were falsely optimistic. Now, I jokingly said about the typo of March 2023, if I was going into a full nesting inspection now, based on the current advice I'm getting from officers, the reality checks in schools, I would be more confident of the position. And if they'd been that level of understanding before the last inspection, there would have been no surprise. So I'm more confident with the information, A, that I'm given, and B, that is being fact-checked through scrutiny, through head teachers, etc., etc. Attendance and exclusion, big issue across Wales, England, Scotland, all the home countries. Yes, you can label it as post-COVID, and we saw, I can't remember the technical term for it, but scarlet fever before Christmas. And yes, parents rightly understood when you've got medical practitioners going on national television saying take your children to A&E, then understandably they're not going to send them to school. The Christmas bit I wanted to make was a number of parents that said, well, Christmas has been ruined for the last 2 or 3 years. We don't want it ruined this year. They kept Johnny and Jane away from school so they wouldn't become susceptible to any illness or what have you. So it is breaking that down. I think NEMO, as I call it, not in, miss out, is a good strategy, and the policies arranged around that, and I take on board exactly what you said, David. I think it is pertinent that we have a seminar just to sort of understand what is going on. If you go into schools and the practice within school around children in this area, it's been a pleasure and fantastic to watch those activities. Obviously, I've not been involved because it's not appropriate for me to be involved. But to see rooms set aside, the nurture room, hub room, whatever you want to call it, that one-to-one with children and groups of children to build their confidence and resilience. And just when they're having a bad day, actually, when I was in Newham yesterday, I suggested we might have a room like that in this building for members when they're having a bad day, because I sure as hell could have used it last March. But that's another story. There was something, Jason, your point. Yes, I totally value every piece of work. Our head teachers, teaching assistants, everybody in school, even caretakers, and I don't mean even caretakers disrespectfully, the whole school team are there to support our children. And of course, the same as in any walk of life, there are doers who will go over and above. This school teacher that went in during the Easter holiday to build a shed for outside classroom, dragged her husband in, as she told me he had no choice, because if she was there, he was going to be there. those people should be applauded. And a tiny little bit of what I do going around schools is thanking those individuals and them seeing me there. Big fat hairy deal perhaps, but seeing me there and acknowledging the work and the effort that they put in, and to make sure that they have the resource to do their job. It's been a real pleasure for the last 6-7 months to go around school and see that interaction of head teachers and teaching staff with our learners. It has just been truly remarkable. So more seminars to come for members to get the understanding, more work to done, and a big, huge thanks across the board, not just education services, neighbourhoods and others who provide the catering, school transport, the maintenance in the schools. I think they've all really come together now to make this a whole system approach to take us forward.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I don't see any other questions or comments, so I'll thank the officers very much for their time this morning. Recommendations start on page 56 of the report at 9.1, and the recommendation is to accept the report as an update to full council. All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That's carried. Oops. Sorry. All right. Agenda item 10, the future direction of Torfaen Replacement Local Development Plan, which starts on page 115 in the agenda. Richard Lewis, Head of Print Planning. Could you deliver the report for us, please?
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, members. I have Adrian Wilcott with me as well, who's heading up the Local Development Plan team. The Council has a statutory duty to prepare a local development plan, and I'll refer to that as an LDP. The current LDP, which was adopted in December 2013, will remain in force until superseded by a replacement LDP. I should say that the current LDP is still fit for purpose for making decisions on planning applications and is in general conformity with Future Wales, which is the statutory plan for Wales. We commenced preparation of an RLDP, a replacement local development plan, in 2018 to cover the period up to 2033. We consulted on the RLDP preferred strategy over the COVID pandemic period, finishing in April 2021. As part of that consultation, Welsh Government commented that whilst the strategy was in general conformity with the statutory plan for Wales, Future Wales, the Council should assess higher growth scenarios. Now that's where we got to. We were about to commence with the higher growth scenarios at that point. However, a number of factors have caused delays in our current timetable. Most notably, the Welsh Government announced a road review across Wales in June 2021, which included the A4042 Trunk Road and the B246 at Llanfretffer. Both of those roads are fundamental to delivering the RLDP strategy. The outcome of the road review wasn't published until February this year. The outcome was positive in respect to the two roads in the county borough, which are key to our strategy. However, if we now continue with the preparation of the RLDP, taking account of the recommendations in the roads review, and we consider the higher growth options suggested by Welsh Government, we would not expect to adopt the RLDP until January 2026. This would leave only 7.25 years of the plan period left to run. That is from 2026, where we'd expect to adopt, to 2033, which would be the end of the plan period. Now, Welsh Government guidance is that when a plan is adopted, there should be at least 10 years left of the plan period remaining. We've discussed this with Welsh Government planning officials, and they have also advised that anything below 8 years would result in a significant risk that the plan would be found unsound when it's examined by an inspector at the end of the process. So this leaves the Council really with two options going forward. We either continue with the current RLDP, with adoption potentially in January 2026, Bearing in mind, we think that only 7 years would then remain after adoption to the end of the plan period. Or secondly, we withdraw the current RLDP and start again with a new plan, with adoption potentially in October 2026, which is some 9 months later than if we continue with the current RLDP. Now, the benefits and risks of each of those options are detailed in paragraph 4.7 of the report in front of you. But given the compelling case that the plan will likely be found unsound at examination if the Council continues with the current plan, officers are strongly recommending that the RLD process is withdrawn and restarted, i.e. option 2, noting that this would take an additional 9 months for the Council to have a robust and compliant RLDP. Now, to restart the RLDP would require a Council decision to withdraw the current plan. This decision would then need to be ratified by the Welsh Ministers. Now, providing the Council makes this decision and is ratified by the Welsh Ministers, officers are then seeking approval to consult with key stakeholders on a draft delivery agreement for the preparation of a new RLDP to cover the period 2022 to 2037. And the detailed recommendations are included at paragraph 8.1 in the report before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Any comments from anyone? Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, I seem to recall that the preferred strategy, the options for the preferred strategy came to Council, and the option that was chosen was the highest growth one, if I remember it correctly. Are we now saying that, even though we chose the highest growth at the time, that that highest growth isn't sufficient to meet Welsh Government's expectations?
Yeah, we chose that as the preferred strategy growth option. When we consulted on that, Welsh Government felt that we were optimistic. We weren't being optimistic enough, and we should test higher growth scenarios than that. That is something that we were then going to do. That doesn't mean that you have to adopt a high growth scenario. It just means that you need to test them and obviously bring those results back to members, for members to make those decisions. And we would look at the benefits and risks of each of those scenarios. But basically, Welsh Government didn't felt we went far enough in terms of the higher growth option.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just for clarity then, the late Welsh Government road review caused our LDP to fail or possibly be withdrawn. So it was down to that. So just wondering, it's going to cost a lot of money. Will the Welsh Government be reimbursing the Council for the extra monies they've caused us to spend?
As you probably know, we've done an awful lot of work in preparation of the current RLDP. There's a lot of evidence already there. We've paid for a lot of work to be done on that. So there will be some extra costs in updating that information. I think that probably a lot of that information, because it's years and years old now, that may need to be done anyway. Probably the biggest impact has been on officer time, and having to repeat the consultations that we've done previously. It was our choice, really, not to proceed in light of the road review. It wasn't Welsh Government that caused us to do that, but we genuinely felt that if we were going to be testing higher growth options, we needed to know what the outcome of these two key roads were in relation to our current strategy, which was based basically on those two roads. But no, there wouldn't be any compensation payable from Welsh Government.
Councillor Stewart-Ashley.
We've already been through a seminar on this, haven't we? And this recommendation that you present today is a result of several meetings, as far as I can see. I'm just wanting to say that I take your recommendation, and if presiding officer is content that we go ahead with it.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Councillor Joe Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member, and thank you, members, for your questions. We've heard how the unpredicted and cumulative effects of the delays have impacted on the progress of our current plan. So to continue with that plan would mean that we'd have little less than around 7 years left on the plan at adoption stage rather than the 10 years needed. To restart at that stage would be a significant cost, and cost is important, isn't it? So it is sensible that we restart now with a new timetable to adopt in autumn 2026, which gives us an extra 4 years on the plan to deliver local jobs and new homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Gordon, sorry. Stuart, did you?
Yeah, I just suggested we move it because I can't see any other option here, to be quite honest.
Thank you. Members?
Yeah, I'm not curtailing debate or anything, but it does seem we've had a seminar on it already, and it it's just very sensible.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Members, Richard has gone through the recommendations in his comments. The recommendations are on page 123 of the report. Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Thank you. Anyone against the recommendations? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 11, the Gwent Public Service Board Wellbeing Plan for Gwent 2023 to 2028, which is on page 131 of the agenda. Lyndon Puddy, Head of Public Services Support Unit, could you deliver your report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member, and good morning, members. The statutory members of the Public Service Boards agreed to move to a single wellbeing plan for Gwent. Torvine Council, as one of those statutory members, supported this decision at a report I brought to Council on the 20th of July 2021. Since the decision to move to a regional approach, the statutory members, alongside statutory partners and other partners of the PSB, have been preparing the regional plan. This has been an extensive piece of work that's been undertaken right across Gwent as part of the partnership approach we take. The plan is before members today with a request to approve the plan content that fulfils this Council's and other statutory members' duties under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. In preparing this plan, extensive consultation has taken place across Gwent. Each local authority area has prepared a wellbeing assessment to feed into the regional plan and support us to identify local issues that particularly impact on Torvine. Members may also recall that I wrote to you all at the end of November last year with the consultation links to ensure that you all had an active involvement, should you wish to do so, in the consultation process that concluded on the 31st of December 2022. The outcome of the consultation and evidence within the wellbeing assessments across all 5 areas of Gwent have identified 2 key high-level wellbeing objectives, and these are that we want to create a fairer, more equitable and inclusive Gwent for all, and we want a climate-ready Gwent where our environment is valid and protected, benefiting our well-being now and in particular for future generations. In establishing our objectives, the Act requires the PSB to set out the steps to achieve the objectives, and this has been identified through 5 collaborative steps, and are that we will collectively take action to reduce the cost of living crisis in the longer term, provide and enable the supply of good quality, affordable and appropriate homes, take action to reduce carbon emissions, help Gwent adapt to climate change, protect and restore our natural environment, take actions to address inequalities, particularly in relation to health through the framework of the Marmot Principles, and to enable and support people, neighbourhoods and communities to be resilient, connected, thriving and safe. In establishing the 5 steps, the PSB has also agreed 4 overarching principles explaining how they will work together to achieve the beneficial outcomes. And these are that they will work together to reduce, in particular, something I know is keen to members' hearts, which is to ensure that we reduce duplication across various areas, that we have good quality communication and engagement, that we ensure that we take a note of the Welsh language and culture,
and importantly that we establish a performance management framework to which the PSB will be held accountable. In developing this plan before you, scrutiny at both the local and regional level has taken place. At the regional level, as noted earlier, Councillor Seaborn and David Williams represent Torvine, and the leader and the chief executives are core members of the regional PSB. For this regional plan to take effect, all statutory members of the PSB are required to seek approval through their own governance bodies. These are the 5 Gwent Local Authority Councils, the Natural Resources Wales Board, and our Bevan Unity Health Board, and the South Wales Fire and Rescue Service Board. The governance process is ongoing, and should all the statutory bodies approve this plan, this will be ratified at the regional PSB meeting set for the 22nd of June this year. Following formal approval of the report, regional and local detailed delivery plans will be produced alongside the performance management framework, and in Torvine that will be delivered through the local delivery group to which the deputy leader chairs. This work will also be complementary to our existing ongoing work within the county plan to avoid unnecessary duplication. Following approval by all members, the plan will be published with ongoing scrutiny and publication via annual reports. Thank you, Presiding Member. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lyndon. Do I have any questions from any members? I think we've scrutinised this report well, we've reported to members well, and we've consulted with our community. So thank you very much. A lot of hard work, Lyndon, and we appreciate the work the leader wants to come in for a moment.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just very quickly, wanted to thank Lyndon for his work on this. He's worked very hard over a number of years in the PSB to get things in shape, and that's very much valued. As with any body like this, I think it's important that we focus on what that body can do and what that body's best placed to do in itself. And I think the work on the Marmot region and the work around that is a key area where the PSB can work to bring that forward. So just thank you to Lyndon for his work on it, because he's really, the number of problems he's solved across the region, things he's fixed over the last few years in this are immeasurable.
Thank you, Leader. I don't see anybody else wanting to comment, so I'm going to ask members to agree the recommendations, which are on page 123 of the report. Members, do you agree with the recommendation? Thank you. Anybody against the recommendations? Any abstentions from those recommendations? Thank you. That report is carried. Thank you, Lyndon. That takes us to agenda item number 12, which is the Community Council Review. Terms of reference on page 163 of your agenda. Caroline Geneva-Jones, Elections Manager, could you deliver your report for us, please? Welcome, Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. Sorry for my voice, I've just a cough of this. The report before you today is to seek your approval on the terms of reference to be used for the community review. In October, Council approved a review of communities and the establishment of a task and finish group to support the review. A task and finish group has since been established, made up of cross-party membership, with Councillor Yole appointed as chair. Our first task was to draft the terms of reference for the review to help interested parties in understanding how we will conduct the review, including the consideration of an elected member ratio, the creation or merging of communities and community wards, and the naming of communities. The terms of reference have now been finalised and are now with you for approval. Once we've received approval, they will be sent to the community councils for comment, and the review of communities will commence.
Thank you, Caroline. Any comments from members? David, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. It's just a relatively simple question as to how many people are on that group, because sometimes it's beneficial that the membership is included in terms of reference. I don't know whether you considered this, but I think in the spirit of transparency, that might be an appropriate consideration.
There are 11 members in total. And they're all single-hatted members. There's no dual members. But if they're happy for me to provide that information, I can provide that too, yeah.
Any other comments from members? No. The recommendations for this report is on page 165. Members, do you agree with the recommendations? Thank you. Any not agreement? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny. Caroline, sorry. It takes us to agenda item 13, which is the workforce strategy for 2023-2028 on page 191 of the agenda. Jason Lewis, Director of Corporate Services, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. Before I present the report to you, I just want to introduce Tina Hume, who sat to my left, who is our Head of HR, and whose hard work has resulted in the development of this strategy that you have with you today. The strategy sets out our ambitions for workforce development over the next 5 years. It has been through an extensive consultation process with both managers and staff. The strategy has been designed to respond to a number of workforce-related challenges facing the Council. It responds to our contextual challenges whilst supporting the strategic aims of the Council, aligning with our corporate values and responding to our statutory obligations. The strategy is organised around 6 key themes. They are well-being, training, apprentices and trainees, recruitment, succession planning and leadership and management. Within each of the themes are a number of sub-themes that we wish to progress over the lifetime of the strategy. These themes and sub-themes are explained in detail within the strategy that's appended to this report. Once approved for implementation, the delivery of the strategy will be achieved through a delivery plan which will map out the expected deliverables and outcomes for each year of the strategy. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Jason. Any comments or questions for Jason? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Within the strategy, I was quite surprised to find that 42% of the full-time equivalent employees of Torfaen don't live in Torfaen, which amounts to something like 1,468 people. Could we do something within the recruitment process to encourage more local people to work for their local authority?
Thanks, Councillor Slade. Yes, specifically around that item, we have plans to concentrate our recruitment of young people within the borough, which will hopefully see ultimately a longer-term shift to more people from the borough being employed by the council. That's our ambition anyway.
Thank you.
Councillor Sue Morgan.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the officers that have been engaged in quite an elaborate process and quite a long and very intense engagement of staff in developing this strategy. Jason's very much aware, as we all are, that the staff are our greatest asset in the organisation. They work very hard every day. They're very hard-working and not massively well paid. And I think it's clearly our responsibility to support them, to develop them, to recruit them, and then importantly to retain the best of our staff within the organisation. There are challenges out there in terms of recruitment. We are competing in an ever more difficult situation for particular specialisms, and the investment that this strategy represents in the well-being of our staff and in the ability to train and develop them is really, really important. Can I just thank all the officers that have been involved in it and commend it to members as something that we monitor, take seriously and really pin our confidence in, because I think it is a strategy that we can be confident in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I'd agree this is a very positive and comprehensive strategy, and it's good to see the engagement that's taken place with staff to develop it. I'm very pleased to see the reference and the theme, as you put it, around apprenticeship and trainees, because I think the Council should be setting a positive example in relation to apprenticeships. I think my observation would be that I think the council should also be taking a lead in terms of provision of workforce placements, so that people have the opportunity, picking up on my colleague's point, local people, local children, local young people have the opportunity to have some workforce experience here, which I think can bear fruit. I'll say no more than that, but it has borne fruit, I think, in the past.
Thank you, Councillor David Williams. Councillor Colette Thomas.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd just also like to comment on the article, apprenticeships and trainees. And it's very pleasing to see that we're going to work with schools and colleges and look after children's teams to support and encourage young people to join the council. And I think it's very, very welcome that we give our looked after children opportunity for a job in Twymai. Thank you.
Jones, Councillor Peter Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. In terms of recruitment, I just wondered, Jason, what we're doing to encourage diversity in the workplace.
It's an ongoing issue for us to make sure that we're not that our systems and processes by which we recruit staff there aren't any inherent bias within those processes. We're quite upfront in stating those expectations when we do advertise and we do recruit, and we continue to monitor the activity, the recruitment activity, to make sure that there isn't evidence of any bias within our processes.
Councillor Stuart Ashley.
Sorry. My question was on the same line, to be quite honest. When I've encouraged people in the ward and relatives, it's, go and get a job with the borough, because we are still one of the biggest employers around here. That whole process, do we encourage people for jobs, fairs, through our advertising, etc. And it's a route in for a lot of people. Obviously, a lot of the younger people, whether going through the university or through apprenticeships, etc., or even through other jobs. What positive moves do we get? I mean, the other scheme that's available is the what it's called, the Department for Work Pensions scheme. What sort of use do we make of that? For unemployed people.
When we're talking about... Sorry.
Are you getting me? Sorry, I don't know whether my headphone was working properly there. Sorry.
Stuart, we're trying to answer.
So in terms of how we're going to advertise jobs going forward, we need to understand really how we get out to young people. So we're looking at recruitment campaigns. We've actually got a piece of work going on with Crossy Cleog school pupils at the moment to talk to them around how they would look to a job and how we would actually engage with them. They're going to help us redesign our website. So we're looking to put together videos around people's careers in local government, but also to explain the range of jobs in local government. I think we forget the range of work and the types of opportunity that we have. We know we've got to engage better. We know we've got to understand the market better, but we also know we have to engage with the young people so they know what opportunities are available. We're going to do that primarily by going into schools and making contact with the careers advisors. So that's the first steps.
Could I just ask a supplementary, if I may, because something that struck me what Lyndon was saying about working with our partners in the PSB. Would there be a joint approach you could do with the PSB partners, bearing in mind you've got the police, the National Health Service, etc.? It does seem a bit obvious to me that there's a combined approach amongst the public services that could be adopted there. I've just thought about that, but obviously everybody's got a retention problem. The older people are going out at one end, and younger people coming in. You've all got a common problem. It just struck me, maybe a bit of partnership working on this might be something we could all do.
Thank you, Stuart.
We can certainly
answer that one.
We can certainly explore that as an idea. I think one of the issues will be for us is we're all looking for different skill sets.
Yeah.
I think what we could get better at doing is sharing staff between us who are looking for career progression. So it's something we can definitely consider.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Tina. Councillor Mandy Owen.
Sorry, I'm using Councillor Hunt's signing. I welcome the work
being done to advertise the roles that we have? Because obviously we have difficulty in recruiting specific roles, but it would be good to give the opportunity to let people know what exactly are opportunities to work through, train up. I know we all know that not everybody wants to be an environmental health officer, but there's qualifications, there's a role there, and you can sort of climb the ladder. So I think maybe a possible, I don't know, week jobs fair where you're advertising specific roles and showing what is the opportunities available, and then going into schools as well. Councillor Janet Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I think the report is great, when we're looking for taking on people for apprenticeships, are we going to consider the pupils with ALN difficulties? Because over the past couple of years, I've come involved with some young people who've got great aspirations to come into the workforce, but very few employers are willing to take them on. So I'd welcome involvement with those with ALN, please.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. It's a matter that's close to my heart. I think if I'm being totally candid, it's become increasingly difficult over the years for people, particularly young people, and particularly young people with learning difficulties, to find jobs within local government, because we sometimes unnecessarily put those barriers in the way, whether it's the recruitment process that we adopt, or whether it's the expectations around qualifications and experience, and sometimes those are unnecessary. So, you know, a part of this process is looking very, very closely at how we conduct our recruitment process to make sure that they're appropriate and they're not introducing unnecessary barriers.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Many people may well know that I like to do a video myself, so if anyone's looking for a councillor or a couple of councillors to get involved in the recruitment, then you know, give me a shout.
Thank you for that offer, Councillor Thomas. I don't see any other comments or questions. I'll take you to the recommendations, which are on page 192 of the report, which is Council are asked to approve the Workforce Strategy 2023 to 2028. All those members in favour, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Tina. Takes us to agenda item 14, which is the update to the political balance, committee chairs and membership of committees. This report is on page 215 of your agenda, and Jason Lewis, Director of Corporate Services and Head of Democratic Services, could you deliver this report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The purpose of this report is to inform members of revisions to the political balance of the Council following recent changes to membership, and to seek agreement of Council to the updated political balance until the AGM next month. Our obligations as a Council in respect to political balance are described in paragraphs 4.1 and 4.2 of this report. The revisions to the political balance have come about as a result of Councillor Giles Davis resigning from the Labour Group and becoming a non-group independent councillor. The revised political balance is included as an appendix to this report. It shows that although there has been a small change in the percentage of politically balanced seats, the number of seats that each group holds in a committee has not changed. Also attached to the report is Appendix B, which identifies the committee membership. The only change that's included in this appendix is that Councillor Steve Evans will replace Councillor Giles Davis as chair of the Licensing Committee, and Councillor Giles Davis will remain a member of the Democratic Services Committee at the request of the leader. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions on that? The recommendations start on page 216 of the report. Do members agree with these recommendations? Thank you. Anybody against these recommendations? Any abstentions? That report is carried. Thank you very much. Takes us to agenda item 15, which is the changes to the executive portfolios. This report starts on page 219 of the agenda. Councillor Anthony Hunt, Leader, could you deliver the report for us, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. It's a very simple report here to update the executive portfolios to fit in best with our new county plan and the council structure. There's one amendment I'd like to move. In one of the appendices is the portfolios. In the communities portfolio, it should read volunteering rather than just TVA to reflect the wide-ranging importance of volunteering in our communities. Other than that, I move the report. I feel this is the best way to align the portfolios in order to meet the priorities in the county plan and provide oversight to the new council structure.
Thank you, Leader. Any questions or comments for this report? The recommendations start on page 221. Members, do you agree with these recommendations, please? Thank you. Anyone against these recommendations? And then abstentions. That report is carried. Thank you very much. Takes us agenda item 16, member champions, on page 233. Jason Lewis, Director of Corporate Services and Head of Democratic Services, could you deliver this report for us, please? You're busy this morning.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. The purpose of this report is to inform members of the role and purpose of member champions and to formalise the role, setting clear expectations and responsibilities through the adoption of a protocol, which is included as an appendix to this report. Member champions act as advocates or spokespersons for a specific area of the council business. They are typically appointed for the purpose of providing a voice for traditionally underrepresented groups or issues which need to be kept at the forefront of council business, although they may not be the responsibility of any individual or committee. The key responsibility of a member champion is to encourage communication and positive action over the issues that they represent. The leader is responsible for appointing member champions, and it is usually done following local government elections, with the champion generally expected to serve for the full term of office. In-year appointments may be made by the leader and for noting by full council. A list of current member champions will be confirmed and noted at the AGM in May. There are two groups of member champions. The first are held by committee members, where the responsibilities align with their executive portfolios. The second group are the non-portfolio member champions. The current list is set out in paragraphs 5.4 and 5.5 of this report. The new member champion protocol sets out the responsibilities of member champions, including their accountabilities and commitments. It is also expected that each member champion will have a job description that is developed in consultation with the leader. Thank you.
Jason, any comments, questions? Thank you. The recommendations start on page 235 of the report. Do members agree with these recommendations? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That report is carried. Takes us to agenda item 17, motions on notice. There are no motions on notice, so we move on to agenda 18, which is members' question time. We have 10 members' questions for today, and I'll just refer to the sheet. Councillor Janet Jones, you've got the first question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. My question concerns the Lifeline. The cost of Lifeline is going up by approximately 60%, from £65 per annum to £109.21. Residents who rely on this facility are facing decisions on whether they can afford the increase. Many are choosing to cancel the Lifeline provision, and this could have disastrous consequences. What can this authority do to help residents offset this increase, whilst taking into consideration that we are encouraging elderly people to live independently, and the Lifeline could well be the only means of getting help for many? I appreciate it that other authorities charge much more for their lifelines, but 60% rise actually is a 68% rise, while the cost of living is rising seems a step too far.
Thank you, Councillor Janet Jones. Councillor David Daniels.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the question, Councillor Jones. You'll have to bear with me. I feel that my voice is going to deteriorate because this is a very long answer. It's a corrective, I think, to some of the feedback that we've received. I'm alive to the comments. There's feedback around people not understanding fully the reasons for the increase. So I've tried to provide a corrective to that by going into some great detail. So strap in. So the issue has obviously garnered some media interest recently, so I appreciate the opportunity that you've presented to elaborate on the fee increase and service changes. This obviously hasn't been an easy decision to take. I'm acutely aware of the difficult financial circumstances that form the backdrop, and please be assured that we've tried very hard to limit the increase while securing the future delivery and effectiveness of the service. In my answer, I'm going to try and illustrate why we had no choice but to increase the fee. The Council commissioned the current contract with the Alarm Receiving Centre, I'll be referring to it as ARC throughout, just to avoid the length, in April 2021, and the service has been delivered effectively since this date. As reported, charges for the Lifeline service are increasing from £65 to £109.21 per year. There's a one-off installation charge of £65 for new starters, but that is not being increased. As mentioned by Councillor Jones, the fees that we charge are considerably lower than most other local authorities. Even with this year's fee increase, our charges remain the lowest in Wales. The highest fee charge amounts to £24.48 a month, compared to our £9.11. I'm informed that many of those other local authorities are also looking at increasing their fees, which will further widen the difference between those fees. So I've got a really helpful table which I'll share with members at the end, which elaborates on those fee differences. It's not up to date because there are, as I mentioned, other local authorities are currently reviewing their fees, but it does give you an idea of quite how different our fees are from others. It's important to highlight that the reason that we've been able to keep the fees as low as they have been and are is that we've taken the conscious decision to heavily subsidise the service as a council. However, the base contract price has had to be increased by 20.62% from £49,920 a year to £60,214.92 a year to sustain the service provision alongside a further charge to cover deterioration calls. So these are subsequent calls. When an alarm is triggered, we make subsequent calls to check that that person is all right until they're reached by the relevant service, so, you know, an ambulance service. These each cost £1.50 per call, and we've seen an increase in those, unsurprisingly, as ambulance waiting times have been longer. So last year we saw 8,670 deterioration calls last year, and that's provided a considerable cost to the service. Overall, and it continues to provide a considerable cost, as has been reported extensively in the media. Overall, the total estimated cost based on the new charges will be 46.6% more than 2022-2023, so we're facing a sizable increase in the cost of the service. In addition to the above, the digital switchover is adding additional pressure to the assistive technology budget. The digital switchover, which should conclude at the end of 2025, poses significant challenges for the assistive technology to the service. Work has already begun to update alarm units to digital from analogue, as per the recommendations of the TSA, a technology-enabled care industry body, and Tech Cymru, a Welsh government-funded organisation. The current provision is not fit for purpose, and as such, the existing alarm stock needs to be upgraded in order to ensure that calls are connected to ARC. In short, without the upgrade, it is estimated that approximately 10% of alarm calls made by the analogue units will fail to connect to the ARC. Furthermore, in the event of a power cut, the old analogue units will not function at all, whilst the digital line with backup router batteries will last for up to 60 minutes. So it's this sort of scenario that connected most with me. Power cuts at night are obviously a significant concern for people with various vulnerabilities, and unfortunately it's a more prescient worry that we have at the moment. So the new digital systems with a 48-hour backup batteries and a SIM card add superior peace of mind to that. Should a client fall over in the dark during a power cut, their fall will be picked up by the new system and the relevant support will be called, whilst the analogue system would not pick this up. So the greater protection and efficiency these new units offer are why we are gradually moving towards all clients having them. Much of the infrastructure in terms of keeping residents using the service safe is therefore not acceptable and necessitate the upgrade to digital alarm units, all of which use SIM cards. Efforts have been made to keep the cost as low as possible in spite of the budgetary constraints we, the Council, ourselves are faced with. Officers have worked with our current provider, ARC, to delay paying their additional charges, which were brought in December 2022, and for the past several years, SIM card charges have been absorbed by the assistive technology team. Unfortunately, as the equipment upgrade is scaled up ahead of the 2025 deadline, this is now unsustainable. It's estimated that the monthly amount that we will pay for SIM cards will almost double in the next 12 months to approximately £2,300 per month. Unfortunately, the cost for services across the range of provisions are inevitably increasing against the backdrop of the economic instability that's faced in the country and across the globe. From the perspective of the assistive technology services, very little that can be done to mitigate the challenge of these increased costs. Just have a drink of that. Service users rightly demand a fast and reliable service from us, and we need to be mindful of how these services are developing in a fast and highly progressive environment. It's therefore essential that the Council explore alternative options and solutions to ensure that the service provided is the quality service citizens require, with a need to ensure that the service is sustainable and responsive to change. So, Councillor Jones, you rightly highlight concern for some users deciding to cease their service. This is also a concern that I hold, and it's something I've monitored throughout this process and will continue to monitor. At the last time of checking, so I think this is literally up to date from yesterday, the number of people who so far chosen to remove the service was 50, so that's 3.05% of the total number of residents using the service. We don't know the exact reason why those residents have chosen to do so, but our team will be attempting to gain an insight with each of those to better understand their individual reasons for withdrawing the service, and obviously to make contact if there is financial difficulty to support them to do so, because obviously it's a vital service. Councillor Jones will have my assurance that I will continue to monitor this figure and the feedback received. Ensuring that people who need the service continue to receive the service is a priority for me. Councillor Jones also asked what we can do as a council to help mitigate the impact of this increase. And firstly, I would highlight that the cost can be spread across the year as a monthly charge at no extra cost to the residents. So instead of one block payment of £109.21, it would be £9.11 per month. Next, I would say that residents in financial difficulty can get support from our council's patch-based social care teams and non-social care services, such as our financial inclusion teams, who will be well placed to ensure that they receive the service as part of their care package, or help them access various grants, including our Welsh Church Fund, to assist them with various aspects of financial difficulty. As I've promised, I will be monitoring the numbers and reasons for residents ceasing use of this service. Almost done. Our services are committed to ensuring that individual residents are kept safe in their own homes, and as part of this, we have a range of services aimed to ensure that individuals are provided with the right support, advice and assistance to enable them to access the income that they're entitled to. These services are proven over the years to be able to unlock and access additional income for residents, and as such enable people to improve the quality of their lives against the backdrop of continued financial pressure. I would see this as an ideal opportunity for residents who are concerned over the increased charges and have difficulty in meeting the cost to seek this advice and support to secure additional funding that could potentially provide them with additional income. In conclusion, the service provided is necessary, and it is indeed a service that we need to safeguard for the future. However, in order to continue to provide an effective service in the interests of all the residents receiving it, the provision requires upgrading, and it is therefore necessary to review the provision and make sure that what is offered is fit for purpose for everyone. The Council will therefore be undertaking a review of options to identify how the service can be provided effectively going into the future, and how, as a Council, this is future-proofed to provide a sustainable and affordable solution for our residents. This is a difficult decision, as the cost of the technology involved and the requirement to upgrade and maintain the provision to a standard that safeguards residents using the service is inevitably increasing. And to balance budgets and consider the wider service provision, the Council has little option to re-evaluate charges. So that was a long answer. I appreciate this might not be the answer that you were looking for, Councillor Jones, but I hope at the very least that I've provided an honest rationale and an extensive rationale for why we're doing what we're doing. I will add on to it. I think that the assistive technology team probably deserve a bit more of a spotlight. So I will request a seminar for members to see all of the different services that they provide, because you will be amazed with the various different technologies and services that they provide for the people of Torfaen. So thank you for bearing with me.
Thank you for your long and extensive answer. It isn't the answer I wanted. I'm sure it's shared by other members. As I said, we're supposed to be a caring authority, and it's really frightening that people who cannot have a lifeline or can't afford it, we could have a fatality or more serious consequences. And I urge that this is kept on our agenda and reviewed. And I'd like your response sent to all members, if at all possible. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, Councillor Jones. I mean, look, I will say, you are sincere. You really give, you really care about this. I was going to swear then. You really care about this, and you do so on a regular basis. So you will have my word that I will monitor this closely.
I will hold you to that, Councillor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both.
And feel free to check in with me.
We've got a long list of questions, so I hope our executive members can be a little bit briefer with their answers. Councillor Jason O'Connell.
Thank you, Chair. Does the executive member for the environment consider there to be any link between the ratio of miscollections, the perception of difficulty in using the waste facility in New Inn, and a rise in the volume of collected general waste from residences across the borough? And does she believe that these factors have contributed to the miss in the recycling target for the borough?
Councillor Mandiowi.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor O'Connell, for the question. With regards to miscollections, I have apologised in the Chamber for the past disruptions. As members know, we have had a lot of vehicle issues and breakdowns, but I am pleased to say that the service is a lot more stable now, and with continued investment and support, we are confident for the future. If there are any miscollections, the crews will return the following day to collect. We can't take anything for granted, though, and I know that there needs to be service improvement and quality improvement. There is a regime in place to monitor the service quality, ensure that our vehicles are fit for purpose, and the team are also working hard on system development for digital transformation to modernise this service. I propose that we have a members' seminar on this. When you mention the perception of difficulty in using the HWRC, I presume you're talking about the opening of black bags and the possible queues. If we're all committed to recycling everything possible, we don't want people turning up with volumes of residual waste, which is what was happening pre-2019. By introducing this change of opening bags, we reduce the volume of residual waste by over 50%, and we also saved the council 80,000, which was the amount agreed in council budget that year. This site is also one of the best performing for recycling and is seen as a model of best practice in Wales. It is consistently achieving over 80%. I think I went up there last month and it was 88% on the board. So I wouldn't want to propose that we reverse the bag opening decision. I think it would harm our recycling rate, not improve it. The site is well used, and yes, it does get very busy. I know this can be frustrating when there are queues, but we did ask the public what they wanted. We went out to consultation and we asked them, did they want to remove the booking system or keep it? And they chose they wanted to keep it. So we haven't done what other authorities have done. They kept the booking system. Some also, you have to show proof of address to use the system, to the site. We have a site open 7 days a week, which offers a complete and wide range of recycling options. Yes, it does ask you to open the black bags, but that is our policy. Do these add to the struggles of reaching our target of 64% and helping us get to 70%? I'm not sure whether you read the report that went to scrutiny, but it shows that since the pandemic, residual waste has increased, but recycling has not decreased. This includes the dry recycling of food tonnage. The behaviour that was happening prior to the pandemic has continued, with over 40% of food and over 20% of paper and card being placed in a residual bin. It's the amount of waste that is increased. I do accept that people need confidence in the service, and we are working hard to achieve this, but I don't think it's alone will improve our target. But in light of the announcement made earlier by the leader, I hope this shows that we are listening to the residents and their concerns. We cannot ignore the fact that we need to increase our targets and recycling rates. I'm just hoping that residents and fellow councillors will get on board with us, help us recycle more and raise our rates.
If I can supplementary, Chair. I have to admit my supplementary changed due to the leader's announcement this morning, which was hugely welcome. And I've got to say thank you to you both for listening to the absolute wall of noise that came from the residents on this issue. I think it's hard for anyone in this chamber to ignore it. So on that, if we pursue a concerted effort and focus on education and increasing the amount of material that we can collect at the curbside, and we hit that 70% target, can you confirm that there will be no requirement for a 3 or 4 week collection?
I believe that if we hit those targets of 70%, then yes, we can not have to have any change. But at the end of the day, this is up to residents now, isn't it? You know, they have to prove that they are help with us to help us recycle and to reach those targets, because if not, we're still going to get those targets and possible fines. And, you know, and we've also declared a climate change emergency, so we have to do the right thing there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Mangione. Councillor Jason O'Connell, question 3, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Chief Executive has made the decision to reduce the number of strategic delivery areas from 4 to 3 and thus realise operational savings from the associated reorganisation. Does it follow that the number of associated political cabinet members should also be reviewed with a view to reducing the number of positions available, enhancing value for money for Torfaen taxpayers and ensuring the remaining post holders' days are sufficiently filled?
Thank you for the question, Councillor O'Connell. I agree we should constantly review portfolios to ensure they reflect our priorities as members and align effectively with the office structure of the Council. However, I don't agree with the assertion that exec member numbers should be reduced, as that would only tip the balance of member scrutiny and involvement in the wrong direction from my point of view, for a minuscule saving of around 0.0006% of the Council's annual budget. I hope the report in today's Council meeting shows the process of review. It is something that I take seriously and will make sure that the structure of the members of the Council reflects properly the structure of the officers so that we can get the best possible results.
Thank you, Councillor Anthony Hunt. Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. During the previous members' questions session on the 28th of February 2023, Councillor Hunt stated that he disagreed with the premise that the 259,000 had been wasted on the now scrapped solar farm site in Seacoke. Can he please elaborate on why he thinks this, and specifically what the taxpayers of Torfaen did actually gain from this investment?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Thomas. From the work, we gained a comprehensive survey data on the quality of land at Seacoke, including ecology and geotech, to inform the future options on what has long been a problematic site. We gained extensive assessments of the energy generation capability of the site to inform its future viability and options. We gained expertise that can be used in the future regarding solar energy generation options, including about the variables of energy generation, grid access and market engagement. It's obviously disappointing that the project could not proceed. The business case stood up and the tender was positive. However, when that tender was subsequently altered, the balance of the project changed. That's something which was beyond our control. We have to explore options to reduce our carbon output in line with our climate crisis pronouncement. This project would have offset over 20% of our carbon generation, which is why it was pursued. Meeting our targets to become net zero will not be easy and will inevitably involve doing things differently. Whenever innovative solutions or different ways of working are pursued, it will inevitably involve more risk, but we cannot simply rely on business as usual or the way things have always been done in the past. So I hope a lot has been learned from this project, even if it didn't proceed as initially planned.
Thank you for that. I do have a supplementary, if that's okay, Madam Presiding Member. Thanks for that, Councillor Hunt. Further to this failed project, the project to restore the site at the British finds itself under the spotlight recently for having spent a significant amount of money with very little to show. This seems to be a common theme here of poor project control leading to overspending, no delivery and no accountability. I appreciate you may not have the figures readily available, but please can you report back on how much is planned to be spent on the site at the British, and when will Torfaen residents see any tangible benefits on their investment?
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I'm happy to update members on the position at the British, and perhaps it's something that's best time-wise, rather than going to long answer now, to have a special session on so that we can update members on the advances on the site and what we're doing to hopefully ensure a green, sustainable and positive future for the British site. So I'm more than happy to do that. In terms of project control, in general. You've seen that we've now got the PMO offices, which is intended to drive forward projects exactly like this to minimise delays and to maximise outcomes, so that when we've made a decision as a council to pursue something, we pursue it in a timely way with regular updates back to members and regular milestones and timelines to try and get projects moving forward in a more timely and productive way. So I very much hope that the PMO office, aligned with the new structure of chief officers as well, will help to an improvement in that.
Thank you. It takes us to question 5, Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. During the recent Tourvine Voluntary Alliance event at the Congress Theatre in Cwmbran, a number of participants expressed their disappointment and frustration that there is no longer an active tourism department in Tourvine advocating for local businesses in the area. Can the relevant Cabinet Member briefly explain the tourism strategy, given the fact that we have areas such as the World Heritage Site in Bronavon and the Monmouthshire to Brecon Canal, and how the strategy is to be realised if, as it is apparent, there is no one actively working on local businesses to develop across the borough?
Okay, thank you for your question, Councillor Thomas. As you say, we do not have a dedicated tourism department. However, we are committed to ensuring we support the tourism sector, which is underpinned by many of our local businesses. This will be facilitated through Destination Tourvine, an approach which will be developed through this financial year and will involve working with our outstanding visitor attractions and support organisations so that we can offer attractive packages for day and overnight visitors that include venues across the borough. Our approach for Destination Tourvine will be supported by a financial commitment from this authority, and this will enable a coordinated and sustainable approach to be scoped, developed, agreed and implemented. We are currently recruiting a team leader, Foundation Economy, who will coordinate this area of work and ensure that the approach aligns and complements other key strategic areas of regen work being undertaken by the teams within the wider service area. This includes the canal strategy, the World Heritage Site, Foundation Economy, including Blenavon World Heritage Centre, Pontypool Indoor and Outdoor Markets, Business Support, Town Centre Regeneration, Green Meadow Farm, Shared Prosperity Fund, Foundation Economy funding, which includes funding for small businesses with a grants programme, and Shared Prosperity Fund Town Centres, which includes funding to support the intervention of campaigns to encourage and visit, campaigns to encourage visiting and exploring the local area. We're also engaging with Tourvine Tourism Association, which is a collection of local businesses and attractions, to explore a proposal for how we can better link up and package our attractions in Tourvine so that they attract more day visitors. The idea is we encourage attractions to work together to promote a day or even a multi-day package of experiences for visitors. Tourvine Tourism Association has submitted a grant request to run a promotional campaign that will showcase a series of days in Tourvine for visitors. This proposal is a good and new opportunity to see whether we can work with providers to deliver tourism promotion effectively by working in partnership with our business community. Thank you.
I've got no supplementary for that. I welcome ask great.
As long as it's a supplementary to the question rather than a new question, I don't.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I have been contacted by numerous businesses regarding the lack of business recycling services offered by this council. They've reported to me that Tourvine doesn't do enough to help them or even track their business. Could the Executive Member for the Environment explain to members of this council if there are any plans to assist and provide a better service to help local businesses in Tourvine to recycle more efficiently?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Thomas, and for raising an important and interesting issue. We are definitely looking to improve trade waste improvements. We already offer service to businesses, serving around 512 businesses with trade services across the borough. We've also been carrying out a trial competition at schools on food waste to not only educate them on reducing the amount of food waste, but also working on a new food waste recycling service. It will not only help us understand the tonnage, it will also help us then inform the sort of vehicles we need to buy if we were to go down a food waste commercial service. I know that people may say they would come to us for their trade waste collections, but I have to remind members that businesses can go to any provider. There are competitors out there, and also we should not use our core budget to support trade waste or overstretch our service with an impact on residential collections. To carry out a service, you'd have to invest in a new vehicle, running costs and staff, which would cost over £100,000 a year. We need confidence to show that there is a business demand and market to cover these costs. With the food waste, we also need to cover the treatment costs, as this does not bring in an income like recycling does. I do think that we need to do some work on this, explore the options out there, so let me work on a plan with the team, come back with members to engage for your views and the way forward. I'd also like to take this opportunity of promoting the Business Direct service, which Councillor Gordon shared with members in a members' seminar before its launch in March. This is part of our effort to support a professional and seamless one-stop service. And as we're supporting business, for example, on their licensing needs, then we could also engage with them with their waste and other services and encourage them to use our services.
Councillor Giles Davis to Councillor Seymour.
Yeah, thank you. Could the Council be made aware of the issues surrounding the new reception area and the total cost of the project so far?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Davis. The design of the current reception desk, unlike the design and refurbishment of the rest of the Civic Centre, has ultimately proved unsuitable for a number of aesthetic and practical reasons which were not foreseen at the design stage. So a replacement is currently being manufactured and will be installed in May. Turning to the costs of the transformation project, with respect to the wider Civic Centres, which we know has had very little investment since reorganisation in 1996, this space was not conducive to a modern and productive working environment. As I've said before today, staff are our biggest asset, and it's surely important that the accommodation they occupy is fit for purpose, modern, flexible, and with good technology. The pandemic and working from home gave the opportunity to look at the way our staff work, and in doing so to consider their working environment. Against that backdrop, we have completely redesigned the Civic Centre into a modern and fit-for-purpose working environment. It has much more flexible space, more meeting rooms, and greater flexibility for hybrid working. At the same time, we address a long-standing issue with heating in the building by replacing all the radiators, which would have had to have been done irrespective of those wider changes. As you know, much of the furniture in place is recycled, and the carpets and the paint are also made from recycled materials. The remodelled Civic Centre also allows us to progress one of our Apollo work streams, building rationalisation. We've already vacated the police station, saving £50,000 per year, and we fully intend to retract out of more buildings with consequent revenue savings. The total cost of the refurbishment project is £960,000, which is within the £1 million budget allocated and agreed by the Council. A note on the current reception desk and the surround, which was created at no particular cost to us. The current desk is an existing one that was recycled, and the surround was simply painted plasterboard. And all of this was done in an effort to see if it was possible to use existing furniture and deliver value for money in that way. It's regrettable that solution didn't work out, but I think it's absolutely right that we tried. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I might supplement, it was just wasn't really supplemental. It was only about the reception area. I fully understood the rest of the building that needed redoing. So I go straight to my second question. Okay then. What was the total cost of the moss wall at reception? And is this a luxury we could have done without during a cost of living crisis?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Davis. The living wall cost is not individually itemised in the schedule of costs associated with painting, decorating and flooring elements of the project, but it's been estimated in response to your question that it's in the region of £1,000. The erection of the living wall was intended to create a very positive aesthetic impact when entering the building, which I believe it does. It also has a positive environmental impact by improving the air quality in the vicinity through improving the oxygen balance and removing pollutants and toxins. This wall has the advantage of being maintenance-free, neatly contained and not presenting any trip hazards, which of course planters would have done. And I think it would have been a very sterile and clinical atmosphere for staff and visitors to the Civic Centre if we'd not had this type of feature. I think it would have been short-sighted and would not in the medium or the long term have been cost-effective. There's clear data that strongly suggests the beneficial impacts of plants in office buildings in improving staff well-being, a topic again we've discussed today. And as resources become available, and if resources become available, we would hope to increase the use of plant life throughout the building. Thank you.
In light of the announcement this morning, Councillor Giles Davis, do you want to ask question 9 or do you want to defer that?
No, I defer. I just wanted to say thank you to the leader and his team for listening to the Torbain residents, and I really appreciate that. And I can come back now.
All right, thanks.
Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Chair. In November 2022, the Labour Welsh Minister responsible for housing announced, and I quote, "From April 2023, the maximum limit which social rents can charge will be 6.5%, an increase well below the rate of inflation. This is the maximum any landlord can charge across all of their properties," unquote. As a Labour executive member responsible for housing, can you explain why Bronavon tenants living in the south of Torfaen, including those living in your Waterpont Newid, are being told that their rent is increasing by 6.5% plus £2 per week? Can you explain why the Labour Party, who clearly don't seem to understand the definition of the word maximum, but who claim they are passionate about supporting people during this cost of living crisis, have allowed the situation that you have?
My answer will be mercifully shorter than the previous one. You'll be glad to hear, and my voice will be glad to hear. If it's all right by you, I think I might just pass on the party political jab and instead focus on the substantive question that you're asking, which residents, including those that you've referenced and are affected, will be most interested in hearing an answer for. So I've taken your query to Bronavon and have been in contact with the senior management team there regarding its content. I can confirm definitively that the increase in rent fully complies to what's been allowed by Welsh Government. However, all housing associations across Wales have flexibility to put up or down rents by £2 a week, as long as the average increase overall for residents is 6.5%. So the reason for this £2 increase is an historical one and has its roots in the stock transfer in 2008 and long, long before that. As I understand it, at the point of inheriting council stock, the rents across the stock differed wildly, significantly, even for equivalent properties not far from one another. So, to help illustrate this, there were much smaller properties in Blanavon which were being charged higher weekly rents than much larger properties in Cymran. You had properties in Blanavon of two-bed properties, one-bed properties being charged more than three-bed properties in Cymran. That was not fair. Even in the south of the borough, this discrepancy was an issue, with one extreme example at the time being one-bed flat in Cymran Town Centre being charged a higher rent than a five-bed property in St Giles. So I hope that this is clear, that this needed rectifying. So in 2013, a rent-setting policy was introduced, where target rents were set for each property in Bronavon's management. The policy, when established, included consultation with all customers prior to its implementation. In order to achieve these target rents, whilst not heaping singular massive rent increases on tenants, the policy aimed to gradually shift them towards their target rents in small increments. So this £2 additional increase is the result of their corrective policy and ultimately aims, quite rightly, to make Bronavon's rental differentials much fairer for all residents. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Just a quick supplementary. I understand the policy from Bronavon, and I understand it was deferred during the period of the pandemic. I guess my question is, why bring it back during this cost of living crisis?
The £2 increase. I mean, I will say, and I probably should have said in my answer, you're asking me to answer for Bronavon. I'm not responsible for housing in Torfaen any longer. We transferred, as mentioned, our stock in 2008. More than happy to come back with an answer on why they've done that. You could have asked that question in your own correspondence with them. I know that you've already had an answer, the answer that I've given you from them. You could have asked that supplementary there. So there is a performative element to what you're doing today. It would be much better, and you would get a better result if you would engage with them directly. Copy me in by all means, but there we are.
Thank you both. Thank you, members, for your questions. Thank you, executive members, for your answers. That concludes the question sheet for today. Agenda item 19 is the Cabinet decisions of the 28th of the 3rd, 2023. The Cabinet decisions start on page 241 and are for the Council to note. There were no challenges to any of the decisions. Any comments or queries on the minutes? Members, I'm asking you to note the Cabinet decisions. All those in favour? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. They're noted. Takes us to the date and time of the next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 16th of May at 2023 at 10 a.m. Thank you very much for your attendance. That concludes the meeting.